Hello and welcome to tonight's show.
Hello and welcome to episode 194 of On the Bench, the podcast for scale modelers, by scale modelers, all about scale models. This episode is being brought to you through the generous support of our Patreon supporters. You too can help support the show. Simply go to www.patreon.com/onthebench and pledge any amount from as little as $1 per month. Don't forget, every paid Patreon supporter gets an OTB sticker. So that in itself is a reason to sign up.
Are you looking for top quality paints for your next project? Then look no further than the Scale Modeler Supply, Australia's hobby paint. Hi, I'm Scott, and as a passionate modeler myself, I've spent years creating the SMS product range, designing them specifically with the Scale Modeler in mind. We have worked extensively to develop our acrylic lacquer paint range to not only be airbrush ready straight out of the bottle, but also to be easy to use so that anyone of any skill level can create professional results with minimal effort. Just give the bottle a good shake, pour into your airbrush and spray at 15 psi. So dive into your next project with confidence, knowing that you're backed by one of the finest hobby paints on the market. Head over to our website at scalemodeler.com.au to check out our full range and to find your closest retailer.
And hello and welcome to the show. And in the studio, I have got Julian.
Good morning.
Where's Ian?
Where is he? I don't know.
Oh, he's not here today, unfortunately.
He's got obligations.
So you're just stuck with me and Julian today.
Yeah, why not?
Kind of weird, isn't it, not having him here?
Oh, I guess, yeah. I mean, like there are occasions and certainly like certain recordings and podcasts of this where one of us hasn't spoken a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but they're still here.
Yeah.
You know?
He's here in spirit.
Yeah, he is here in spirit.
We could take the piss out of him because he's not
Disembodied
here.
spirit.
We could really lay into him because he's not here.
Yeah, so what's going on?
Well, I am busy still building HMS Tata for the Interclub build.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm progressing along with that.
Right.
And I'm really keen to sort of get that finished and get it off my desk because I want to start on some of those rockets that I purchased over in Madison. I'm really keen to get them started.
Yeah.
So I'm working really hard to get this ship out of the way. And I've got to get that done because that's coming up in September. And then this weekend coming up, Ian and I are off to QMHE.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be doing some recording up there. You won't be with us for that one.
No.
So it'll just be me and Ian.
No.
And yeah, that's pretty much what's on my plate at the moment. What about yourself?
I've been working on, well, I've got a few things on the go in various states. So, there's the Mustang.
Oh, yes.
Now, I've put my decals on. I've got my paint, primer paint, decals, and then my first layer of clear. The clear went weird.
Oh, what sort of clear did you use?
The standard stuff that I always use, which is the Guns GX100.
Yeah.
It went a bit weird because, like, what's happened is some of the decals have had a reaction to it.
Oh.
So, like, it's mostly smooth all over, except where the decals are, and it's created bubbles or something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's weird. And not everywhere. I think it might just be where I put lots of decal softer.
Yep.
Right? So I think like the decal softer sort of... I did notice that they were very heavily affected by the decal softer. This is the Gun stuff, the
right.
Gun's decal softer,
Yep.
which is, as you know, is kind of strong. But I heard from Brian that they changed the formula and they've made it more stronger. I've still got the original bottle I've been using for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So mine's the weaker kind.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to know what happens if I use the stronger kind. Because these Revel decals are very heavily affected by it. Like, it almost corrupts them in a way.
Sure.
Yeah. So once I sort of realized what was going on, I didn't use it for any unless I absolutely had to and had to get it to conform around a corner or a panel line. In which case, I just targeted those areas and I didn't spread it across the entire decal.
So what are you gonna do now with?
No. I mean, I left it for 2 days, let it harden up properly,
Right.
and then I hit it with some 1000 grit. I want to say, sanding stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of to knock that down, and then I can hit it with another clear. And
Any idea what you reckon? It was just the.
I mean, like,
decal
I don't know.
softener
Maybe
that-
it's like it was still like it was creating some kind of gas or something like that. And then when I laid clear over it, it like formed these pockets or something. I got no idea, really.
It's very bizarre, man.
Yeah.
Very bizarre.
On the plus side, when I was actually knocking that down, I realized that I could use this 1000 grit sanding stick because you know how like generally in the past, like I had to put like Hasegawa decals on that Galant car that I did.
Yeah.
And it was like a big long decal for the dotted stripes.
Yes.
The dash stripe that run down the side. I had to load a lot of clear onto that just so I could polish that smooth so that it looks like a unified surface and I didn't have that raised area from the decal. But because these decals are so thin, I could with just one layer of clear on this car,
Yeah.
I could then go in with that 1000 grit sanding stick and knock all that down flat. I had to do that in multiple like stages of paint and then sand and then paint and then sand kind of on the Hasegawa car. But with this one, it was very, very easy.
Sounds not too much work to me.
Well, I mean, it's part of... You know what car modeling's done for me?
What?
It's actually made me just sort of step up all the way. Like, because like with armour and aircraft, it was always like you get the plane done and then it's like, okay, well, now there's weathering, but it looks like a finished model, so I'm just going to leave it like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And things like extra sort of things, you know, things like taking the time to gloss black an oleo strut and like spray that with the chrome finish.
Yes. Yep.
Things like that, I would always feel like that's just such an extra step.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered. You know, that's gonna blow it out from like say 5 days of painting to 6 days of painting, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I just find myself taking all the extra steps when it comes to cars, and I can't stand that it's not done correctly.
I think doing a car model, especially when you're looking to get that paint absolutely perfect, you're forced to go to that sort of step, aren't you? You can't half-ass it.
Nah, I guess not. But I mean, like, so when you get to say the point where you've finished painting and decaling and all that of an aircraft or a tank model, and then you're down to the weathering, and it feels like a very creative process, right? Like you're being artsy,
Yes.
in a way. But with car models, you never have that part, generally speaking, unless maybe you wanted to do a rally car or something. But I've never done anything like that. It's sort of like and I was talking to Tony Jacob about this.
Yep.
It's a very it's a genre that demands a lot of perfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's like building, rockets as well. That demands and submarines. They're the only two ones that demand the perfection because you've got to make sure that seam line isn't there. And if it is, if you don't do it properly, you've got nowhere to hide. Whereas with an armour kit, and also with cars as well, I guess is the other thing too. You got nowhere to hide. Whereas if you're doing like an armour subject, you can hide some of those faults that might pop up with weathering and stuff. With rockets and submarines and cars, you've got nowhere to hide. It's either perfect or it's not.
And then on top of that, though, you've also got like this aspect of realism that you don't get with aircraft much, sort of. Aircraft perhaps more so than tanks, because tanks you can never, even if you see one in a museum, and it's unrestored, it still doesn't bear a resemblance to tanks in the field. You know? Yes.
It's because
it's never going to be like no one's going to leave like the Vietnam dust on the tank and put it in the museum.
That's exactly right. Yes. So the environmental sort of effects on the tank that you see in a museum aren't going to be replicated
Yeah.
in a museum.
Yeah.
Well, the Armour and Artillery Museum up in Cairns, though, they do a rust restoration of some of their tanks where they don't
Restoration?
Restoration, yes. And that's taken to a certain degree, but
It's not quite the same.
no.
So I think that there's the closest you get is when armor modelers do tractors and other low like earth moving type vehicles and things like that. And because there's real life tractors, they can take real life examples of the weathering and bring them across, and you have a very, very defined idea of what realism looks like.
Yes.
And it's the same with cars because we're so familiar with cars that when you look at a car model and you're like, it doesn't look that real because like that A-pillar, those A-pillars are too chunky, and maybe the wing mirrors are overscale and other aspects that you sort of become super familiar with, and you just go, yeah, I can see why that's a model and the shape's not quite right, in a way that you can't define.
Well, in even in the ship modelling world, I'd want to say the last 15 years or so, it's come into that side of it where you're trying to represent the ship as if she was just taken straight out of the water with all the rust and all the imperfections, the
oil canning
and the rust streaks and everything. Whereas, 20 years ago, it would be built as a museum standard sort of model.
Museum depiction of it in like an idealized state,
Yep, exactly right. So...
Well, there's a lot of aspects like that are missing in a lot of armor models as well. For example, things like lights have cable, have wires going into them, right? You never see those on models.
Oh, well, I think
it's.
I think the
I'm
guys.
not, I won't go as far as to say that it's never been there, but it's typically not there.
Like the smoke launchers, for example. But I'm seeing a lot of, in more recent times, I'm seeing a lot more guys that are paying attention and adding those features to it now.
Yeah.
And
that's how you stand out from the crowd, isn't it?
Well, yeah. And how you add that little extra bit of sort of realism to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think by and large, though, these days, because we're spoilt for choice and we're spoilt by all of the easy access we have to the top quality modelers. So the guys who are sort of at their peak of their of the craft, they do add that extra stuff in. So I think it's forcing the rest of us who are, for want of a better word, lazy modelers or wouldn't really care about those sort of details, not being forced to do it now, but we are doing it now.
There's different types of armor modelers. There's the I'm all about the weathering, and they're very creative individuals, so they get the construction side. They get that knocked out fast, and then it's down to the painting and the weathering, and that's the part of the process they enjoy. And they don't really want to be too concerned about the physical aspects because it's just a canvas for their painting and weathering aspects, right? And then you got like sort of the armor models that have come across from aircraft, and they're quite concerned about the physical aspects. And then if they just happen to be good at weathering on top, they can make an extremely good looking model. There's not too many of those. I've seen there's that I forgot his name, something or other Morgan. He's a Canadian modeler who really he's very active in the French armor modeling groups.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's no models for those.
Yeah.
So he has to scratch build and things from he'll go ahead and like build up all the tracks and things like that. And he's digging up photos that no one's seen before of like really obscure and like going, oh, that's how it looks down in that deep hole in the bottom of the tank. And lots of because a lot of those French tanks are super obscure.
Yes, they certainly are. They certainly are.
It's only in recent years that we've even had a few models released. But like he takes that kind of like, and he he's got like for example, he'll do posts where he'll detail like all the different types of rear decks on a particular tank, because there's like different iterations and they have different arrangements for all the grills on there.
Yeah.
And he'll drill into that aspect and make sure it depicts the one that he's doing and all this. It's really, really crazy.
Yeah. Well,
It's when it comes to those French tanks, it's really easy to see that model manufacturing companies aren't too concerned with the details a lot of the time. They're more like, near enough is good enough. If we can't figure it out, no one else can either. But there's always someone who can.
Good luck to him. Good luck to him.
Anyway, that's me talking about the Mustang.
Cool.
And I need to get that done for ACT. That's my plan. I've also got the Gundam, which I barely touched, and the deadline for that got extended to the end of August. So hopefully I'll find some time for that.
The end of August isn't far off.
I know. I mean, my plan is to put the Mustang aside as soon as I've got one more coat of gloss on it, and then I can worry about polishing that crap later. The other aspect is I've got the Musaru Cup to do.
Yes, you do.
Yep. So I did purchase something for that.
Ooh.
So I purchased I want to depict it on a trailer.
Yep.
As they came, and there's two kits in the box, right? There's the Seehund.
Yep.
And the Mulch.
Mulch. I'm going to say mulch.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's mulch with an O.
Yeah,
mulch. Yeah. That's the bigger one. It's much longer. So the thing is, in 70-second scale, there is Special Hobbies make some trailers for not the Seehund and not the Mulch, but the Biden, I think it is.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's a different kind of midget sub.
Yep.
But obviously there's similar enough stuff on that I can use that to kit bash my way to a working trailer. And I was sort of tossing up between the two because the Mulch is a very long vehicle. It actually has 6 sets of wheels on that trailer. So there's, 12 wheels?
Yeah.
And there's not enough wheels. So it's like, and it's a very complicated assembly with this long pole that runs down the length of it. And it gets really sort of complicated. So I'm doing the other one, the one that's kind of like a series of like I-beams and things like that. It'll be interesting.
Oh,
and the thing is that it's still very like I keep reminding myself how big this thing is. So it's like it's like I don't know, 10, 12 centimeters long or something like that.
It's not big.
It's not big at all.
No.
But I'll be able to get close enough. Like I'm not too concerned about nailing it because obviously it's just a stage for the submarine.
Sure.
Yeah. Anything to avoid doing a water diorama because I don't want to deal with resins and things like that.
Well, you could just get this periscope and do water and just have the periscope sticking
Well, I mean,
up.
I do want to do a good enough job that it's on the proper, at least a trailer that resembles the proper trailer as seen in the photos. What I don't want to do is what other people have done where they've gone, oh, I'll just buy this random German trailer and then put some wood blocks on it and then slap my submarine on top because there's no photos of that. That you've created a fictional scenario.
Well, don't forget to post pictures to
I sure
the Facebook page.
But I haven't done anything other than purchase yet.
Yeah,
so once I've actually got those two, all the available kits that I'll need, which is only 2, right? The one I've already got and the one that's coming. I'll do a post saying this is my starting line.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Should we get into some mail? We got
not?
Quite a bit of mail. Let's have a look now. First one comes from Hector Colin, who I met at Madison, and he says, "Hi guys, first of all, Dave, it was awesome to finally meet you at IPMS National Convention in Madison. It was great to finally have a face to go with the voice. I would say that you have a face built for radio, but I'm trying to be nice. I regret that Bob and I couldn't sit down with you and have that beer, so maybe next time. I agree with you about IPAs. For some reason, they are extremely popular here in the States, even if they all taste like spoiled orange juice. Give me a nice lager anytime." Well, good on you. Now, the reason for my email. In previous episode, you discussed what you call trophy hogs as someone who enters multiple models in the same category in an attempt to sweep the category. I have to disagree with this definition. If somebody enjoys building car models, for example, then he is going to bring multiple car models as entries to any show. This is no different if the modeler enjoys building aircraft, armour, ships, etc. My personal definition of a trophy hog is a modeler who enters the same model in multiple shows for multiple years. Now, in itself, multiple shows is not the problem. At my club show, we constantly see entries that have entered in other local shows. This is mainly due with having our show in November and is the last show of the year in our area. However, when we see that same model year after year, then it becomes an issue. We can always tell, since most of the time the model is dusty. So if you're going to continue to re-enter your model in multiple shows, do us all a big favour. First of all, read the previous judges' comments and correct them. If your model has crooked wheels, fix them before entering in the next show. If not, then don't get bent out of shape when it fails to place a second time. 2. Clean your model. If your model is supposed to be dirty, that's fine. But if it's supposed to be bright and shiny street racer, make it look bright and shiny. Clean the dust off it. My personal rule of thumb is if you can't take the time to clean your model, then I'm not going to take the time to judge it. Number 3, understand that model judging is subjective. You also need to look at your competition. Each show attracts different skill levels. So just because your model won Best of Award at one show, it does not mean that it will automatically win at every show you take it to. Dave, thank you for the OTB challenge coin. My son, who is still in the Navy, collects challenge coins and has already claimed it for his own collection. Take cares. That's from Hector Colin.
Very good email there. I agree with everything that's said.
And you know what? I agree too. And I was perhaps a little bit too hasty saying that if you...
Well, you clearly haven't thought it through as much as he has.
I hadn't. And
has the full... he's got the full fleshed out opinion.
And this is the second time I've been corrected, and I'm happy to stand corrected because I think to myself, well, I almost build now exclusively real space stuff. So I'm almost doing what I was sort of railing against, which, because when I go to a competition now, I'll take about 6 rockets with me. And the last thing I want to do is look like a hypocrite. So I'm going
That's all right. They look at all your rockets and then they look at you and they go,
yeah,
you don't look like a hypocrite. You
no.
look a bit odd, but...
So I've got to burn that soapbox. So thanks very much for that, Hector. And it was great catching up with you. And yes, you still owe me a beer. Lee writes in with a very short one. Dear Bench Blokes, yet another enjoyable episode. I'm loving your relaxed style. No special comment, just sending you a happy response and thanks about the tip when to go to Japan. That's from Lee. Yeah, definitely don't go in the middle of summer, man. It is bad. Luke Van Neck writes in, DS OTB crew, the happy one, the metalhead, and the realistically cynical one. Firstly, I had to write in the thought of 2 grown gentlemen, Dave and Dave, a bottle deep in Kentucky's finest 120 proof, in the pool on motorised floaties, where they were floaties that looked like tanks or have water pistols in, was just too much, let alone the thought of a mower with Dave riding on Dave's lap, both with the finest crystal old-fashioned glasses sloshing around as chipper as can be, with Dave narrating it like Sir David Attenborough, was utterly hilarious. Secondly, now to beat the hornet's nest with a cricket bat. Now I don't compete. I maybe get 1 model done in 12 months, but the no sweeps rule baffles me no end. The argument against gold, silver, bronze is that the best 3 models who show up on the day, end of story. If the model enters 3, 4, 5 and 6 models in the category and is then judged by their peers, that modeler produced the best 3 models in the category. Why is their second and third models removed? ? That is no longer the best 3 models that showed up on the day. Lastly, see you guys at QMHE! Exclamation mark, exclamation
You know,
mark,
I
exclamation
hadn't thought
mark.
about it from that perspective.
Yeah, gee, this judging thing's hard, isn't it, man? This competition stuff.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
I
know I've got a response somewhere bubbling, percolating up, but
I can't disagree with it. But at the same time, I mean, like, this is one of those things why it's a contentious subject, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, to use an example, people get quite bent out of shape about politics, and they go, okay, well, it's like, oh, this is a very decisive issue.
Yeah.
And, one side of politics will take one side, and the other side will take the other. And some of them, it seems like a no-brainer. And it seems like they're arguing for the sake of arguing. But others are a contentious issue where there is no right or wrong, and it's just two fairly legitimate perspectives on different takes on this one thing.
Just a lot of grey areas.
But this is just one of those sort of moments, isn't it? I mean, how do you determine which is more important?
Yeah, all right.
Because there are some amongst us who would abuse it either way, right?
I hope not.
Well, I mean, like, there'll be like a guy who, obviously has quite a significant amount of experience and, wins often, and then they go to some show and they take all of their models with the attempt of, just cleaning up.
Yeah.
And, at least with under IPMS rules, I mean, that would be a case where, like, one person would get first, second, and third, and then everyone else is sort of going, how was that figured out? And there's no feedback. Like, what do you do then? Yeah, if you're not the guy that wins, it could be pretty annoying. Quite a, man, depends on how insecure you are, I suppose.
Thanks, Luke. Good on you. I'll see you in Queensland. James Morando writes in, hey, OTB team, long-time listener and love your show. I'm writing because our local club, IPMS Santa Rosa, will be hosting a show on October 12th, 2024, and I wanted to ask you if you could please include our show during the upcoming model show shout-outs on your podcast. Should we do it? Yeah? Should we talk about it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's do it. We are very excited about this year's show. This year, we will be adopting an open gold, silver, bronze judging format for the first time. In fact, I'm pretty sure this will be the first show ever to use an open judging format in the IPMS Region 9, which encompasses North California and Nevada. So we'll be making a little history. With that in mind, the theme of our show will be evolution. I've attached our show flyer, but the pertinent information is that it will be held from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, October the 12th, 2024, at the Rohnert Park, that's spelled Rohnert Park Community Center at Rohnert Park, California. Free admission and $12 entry fee for the first three models. Lots of great vendors are lined up, and we have a terrific raffle. We'll be doing a build and take table and then the open GSB judging. We're also asking folks to bring kits and model supplies to the show for donation to support our charity initiative to help heal veterans, a wonderful organisation that provides 3 therapeutic kits and modelling supplies to veterans. For further information, folks can contact either James Morando or the show coordinator, Dean Wallace, through Facebook Messenger on our club's website. So that looks like a great show to go to if you happen to be in that part of the world, in California, Nevada, Northern California, Nevada area. And if you're doing nothing October the 12th, pop over and have a look.
Sounds good.
It does. What's the next one? Craig Everson writes in, a good friend of ours, dear Dave, Ian and Julian, hope that you are all well and getting a little bench time when you can. I'm just writing to say it was great to hear about your trip overseas, Dave, on the last episode, and it makes me want to try and go to the Nationals and Japan one day. I wanted to comment on a couple of things that were brought up in the email section of the episode, mainly pertaining to Dermot, who said that he was going to scale ACT this year for the first time, was a bit worried if he would feel a little awkward being around people he didn't know. Well, I can say that he won't be at all. As all of you guys know, it is the most friendly show in Australia. I suffer from anxiety and was very nervous the first time. I went in 2022, but after getting there and walking around for a while, that all went, and then I met you and Ian, and both of you made me feel so welcome and like we had known each other for years. If Dermot is worried about entering the kit in the show, the best category for him to enter would be Achievement Unlocked, as it's for people that haven't entered a show before. Also, I just want to comment on what Julian was saying about taking photos of his cars with forced perspective angles. And I'd recommend checking out a young guy on Instagram called Anthony Schmidt, as he does this with not so much plastic model cars, but with die-cast cars. But he makes them look as if they were real. As always, keep up the great work and look forward to the next episode. Kind regards from Craig Everson.
I've probably seen that guy's photos. I think he does like old 50s cars and American 50s cars and stuff, I think. Generally, I'm trying on Instagram to filter out die-cast cars because I want to see like a lot of pages from people who build models, and Instagram can't tell the difference between the two. It just goes, oh, you like cars? You like small cars? Here's all the small cars.
Yep, 100%.
But I think I do. I think I might have seen that guy's stuff creeping in.
All right, the next one, a company called Black Ops Models has reached out to us, and they say, hi, Benchers, I'd like to introduce you to our Australian small business making conversion kits and diorama accessories, Black Op Models. We have a unique range of modern Vietnam-era subjects. Like many other manufacturers, we have embraced 3D printing. A great use of this technology is creating of bar and slat armour, and the first kit we have produced is a conversion of the Trumper Aslav 25. What did I say?
Trumper.
Oh, Trumpeter. Aslav 25. This is a great solution over assembling etched brass, especially for that slat stuff. And they've got some pictures of the completed model, and I'd like to hear our impressions. I think I had a look at it, and it looks really super cool. So for those of you who want to find out more, just type in Facebook to Black Ops Models.
Black Ops.
Black
with an
Ops
S.
Models. Thank you very much. And the actual address is blackopsmodels.com, and go and check out the product range we've got there.
So they included two photos, one with the 3D printed resin.
Slat.
Yeah, it's the armor that looks like a cage around it.
Yep.
And then they've got like a finished painted up model. And, when I was looking at it as just 3D printed, where you just see the material colors and everything.
Yeah.
I thought, it looks a little bit overscale, but then you see the finished model and it doesn't look out of place at all.
No, once it's painted up,
it looks no different
awesome,
to the photo which ones that I've seen.
So if you're going to do an Aussie version of an Aslav in Afghanistan, definitely recommend that you go and check out this because it looks absolutely awesome. In fact, I might post some of them to our Facebook page because I reckon that look really, really cool. Rightio. William Barry Goss writes in, just listen to the latest episode, 193, and did you know that Japanese kits sold in Japan are sold at MSRP? This may have changed since the time I was stationed in Okinawa, but...
I like how he's written Okinawa in a way for you to read it, Dave.
I know how to say Okinawa. This may have changed since I was last stationed in Okinawa, but if you look in the corner of the kit box end cap, you will see a number, other than the kit number, which is the MSRP yen rate. Just a useless bit of trivia and tidbit that I thought I'd share. That's from Barry Goss in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of Japanese boxes will have, like, 3,000 in the corner, and you think, okay, that must probably some kind of code number or something. No, that's the price. And they print it on the box
There you go.
in yen.
Okay, we have another show announcement. This one comes from Scott from the Wagga and District Scale Model Club. Please find attached a flyer for our next show. And the next show is going to be... I've got to bring up the right thing. Stand by. It is the Scale Model Show and Expo on Saturday the 26th and Sunday the 27th of October, held at the Kiamba Smith Hall in Wagga Wagga Showgrounds. If you want to find out more, you can email waggadsmc@gmail.com, which stands for the Wagga Wagga and District Scale Model Club, or go and check them out on Facebook. And the entry is going to be $5 for adults. Model entries are Saturday 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Award presentations are going to be 3 p.m. Sunday. And there's obviously the competition, display of models, swap and sell, various traders and supplies, and the canteen available all weekend. That looks like a great little place to get to if you happen to live in and around Wagga Wagga. I reckon that most of the guys from Canberra could probably get up there, and even some of the guys from Sydney as well. It shouldn't be too much of a push to see them there. Anyway. Next one comes from Mark Copeland. Dave, it was truly great to see you in Madison, and I truly enjoyed our chats together. I just listened to your excellent episode recapping the show and all your travels. Excellent job. Hope to see you down the road very soon. Stay well and all the best to the OTB lads. Cheers from Mark Copeland, Lakeville, Minnesota, USA. And Mark is a real character, and I think we need to get him on the show for a bit of a yak.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's a real character.
Okay.
A big unit, and really interesting too, because he's done some work that encompassed sort of the movie world type of stuff. So,
Okay.
With B-17s and stuff. So, yeah, very, very interesting to sort of talk to. So, I need to have a chat to him, I think, and get him on. Our last one comes from Dave Langmead, who writes in, "Hi folks, can I make you aware of a forthcoming event that a few members of the West Midlands Police Model Club will be attempting in conjunction with the Polish Heritage Flight, a UK-based organisation who, through education, is raising awareness of the contribution of Polish aircrews during World War II, over and above the famous 303 Squadron and the repeat please line from the Battle of Britain movie. In short, we are attempting a 24 in 24 build during the weekend of the Duxford Battle of Britain Air Show. 3 members will be attempting to build as a passable build as possible the new tool Airfix 1/24 scale Mark IV Spitfire during the weekend of the Duxford Air Show on the 14th and 15th of September 2024. We will be building during public access between 8 a.m. and 6 o'clock on both days, so it's not quite 24 hours, with the aim of seeing how far we can get. Building in hour slots, the aim is to get as far as we can through the build, sticking strictly to the steps laid out on the instruction leaflet with no modular building and building purely out of the box. The aircraft will be painted in the scheme of the Polish fighting team in Tunisia in 1943, if in fact they get that far. And we will be on public display during the weekend next to the Airfix stand in the Restoration Hall of Hangar 1. The aim of the exercise being to showcase our hobby while assisting the Polish Heritage Flight in their quest of raising awareness around the role of Polish pilots, bomber crews, and ground crews, memorialising their memories. So there you go. So anybody who's attending Duxford on the 14th or 15th, come along and say hi and offer us some encouragement, or otherwise shout abuse at us for getting ghost seams or misaligned landing gears. It's going to be fun. Many thanks in anticipation. That's Dave Langmead from the West Midlands Police Model Club. That sounds like a bit of a challenge those guys have set for themselves there, haven't they?
I think they got. I don't know if they've ever done any quick build type stuff before, but yeah, I wouldn't want to. I highly doubt they're getting to paint, especially since they're not doing. They're not breaking it up between each other. They're doing it in linear.
Yeah,
as the instructions imply, and it's like, that's a tough order.
There it is. Mark Ewing also writes into our On the Bench Facebook page, the best model show in Scotland, Edinburgh, is next month. So if you're in the area or nearby, please stop by and enjoy a great modelling experience. So let me see if I can just bring up the details of that. It doesn't say where it is. All it says is Edinburgh in Scotland. But if you go to www.scalesscotland.co.uk, there'll be a lot more information in there for you, so you'll be able to go and check that out. And last but not least, a bit more local for us, Wings 24, which is on October the 27th. Excuse me, at the Hyatt Community Centre, 2 Livingston Street, I beg your pardon, in Hyatt. It is a certificate. It's going to be awarded for Best of Show, Best Allied and Best Enemy, special interest groups, and there's also going to be a swap meet from between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock. So that looks like a lot of fun and local event as well. So Wings 24, which is October the 27th here in Victoria in Hyatt. Of course, if you want to send us some information, you can write to us on thebench64@gmail.com. We'd love to hearing from you and look forward to emails from you. All right, I think we need to now have a chat with our guest, which is going to be interesting.
Yes.
Rock Roszak from Detail and Scale. So how about we roll straight into that?
Hi, it's Chris, the Promotions Officer for the Queensland Model Hobbies Expo, here with your invite to join us on the 17th and 18th of August at the Ipswich Event Centre and at Ipswich Showgrounds for the 28th running of the QMHE. Register your entries for the competition or book a table for the swap meet on Sunday via the website at qmhe.com. With over 20 local and interstate retailers attending and our member clubs displaying, we hope to see you all there in August.
And now it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show Colonel, retired, Rock Roszak. And Rock is the son of immigrants who came to America from war-ravaged Europe. He grew up in Staunton, Virginia, and graduated from VPI in 1971 as a member of the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets. Commissioned in the US Air Force, where he amassed over 2,000 flying hours, mostly in B-52D, F and Gs, as well as a C-135 aircraft, over 27 years of active duty. His staff tours included time as a special assistant to the Air Force Chief of Staff, liaison officer for strategic aircraft programs to the House and Senate Armed Services Committee, and as a senior technical advisor to the Special Ambassador for Assistance Agreements to demilitarize strategic nuclear launch vehicles of the former Soviet Union. After retiring from the Air Force, Rock spent 14 years on the staff of Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets, returning to where he began his military career. During those years, he established an alumni aviation gallery which featured his artwork of aircraft flown by cadet grads to highlight more than 60 years of military aviation. An avid modeller in his younger years, he's been a digital artist for over 13 years and has illustrated several books in partnership with his good friend Bert Kinsey. He learned digital publishing by creating his first ebook about aviators whose aircraft are displayed in the campus gallery entitled Hokie High, Combat Aircraft Aviators of Virginia Tech Corps for Cadets Alumni. Gee, I hope I got that right, Rock. Did I say Hokie correct?
Correct.
Well, there you go.
Correct.
Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, and I really appreciate the invitation. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Well, we caught up when I was in Madison, albeit a very short catch-up, but it was a very great conversation that we had, and I thought you'd be a super interesting guy to have on the show and talk about the work you do with Detail and Scale. And, of course, Detail and Scale do publications, aviation publications, as well as scale model reviews. And for most modelers, you're an invaluable resource when it comes to building aircraft. But before we get into that, I'm really keen to sort of have a chat about your prior service. Flying B-52s. Man, that sounds awesome.
Well, I was a navigator and what they call a radar navigator, which is there's a two-man downstairs team. The navigator and the senior guy who's the radar navigator. And I did both of those positions and ended up with a total of about 1,800 hours. But before we even get to my military service, there's one thing that bio that you read didn't really say.
Oh, what was that?
That I was almost an Aussie.
You're kidding me.
No. I thought that might grab your attention.
Oh, it certainly has. You got to tell me that little story now.
Well, my parents, as you read there, were both immigrants. My father's Polish, Roszak.
Sure.
That's not an Irish name.
No.
he was living in Poznań, Poland, and 15 years old when the Germans invaded.
Wow.
And so he spent World War II under Nazi occupation. And my mother was of Polish descent, but her family had moved to Germany just before she was born in the early 1920s. So after the war, my dad and a buddy hopped a freight from his little town in Poland. I mean, hopped a freight. They stowed away on a train. They made their way to Berlin. And I'll try to keep this short. They got to Berlin. They found themselves in the British zone, and the Brits sent them back to Alhorn, Germany, where there was a Polish Spitfire wing. Mm. And these Poles took my dad and his buddy under their wing. And in the time they were together, before they disbanded the Polish fighter wing, they taught my dad to speak English.
Right.
And when the wing got disbanded, my dad got a job with the American Occupation Forces because he could speak the language. And they sent him up to Bremen, Germany, and that's where he met my mother. Her family had gone through some turmoil. They suffered under the Allied bombing campaign. Her dad spent the last 2 years of the war in slave labor because he was a Polish Catholic.
Right.
And they met and they got married and they wanted to get out of war-torn Europe, so they applied for visas to the United States and to Australia. And they said they'll go to whoever says yes first. So I was close to being an Aussie.
Close, but not quite.
Close, but not quite.
We're happy to have you on as an honorary Aussie, so that's fine.
Well, but that background, leads me to tell you that ever since I was a little kid, I knew that I was going in. It was understood that I was going into the American military.
Yeah.
To repay the debt of freedom.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up focused towards the Air Force. And I graduated from Virginia Tech, and it was at a military school within a larger university, and was commissioned there in June of 1971. And was honored to serve 27 years. And I did that B-52 stuff, which is, flying a big airplane like that is for young men and women these days. So I had a bunch of staff tours after that, and I was blessed to get my last assignment as the commander of the ROTC detachment where I started. So it's great to be back here.
And it's amazing to think that the B-52 is still flying and will be, nearly 100 years old. And, I mean, that's like having a Sopwith Camel sort of only retiring in 2015 or something.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. And it just goes,
it really is.
It speaks to the engineering, and it speaks to the mission profile that's still required.
And it also speaks to the professional maintenance organization that supports that airplane. You know, we send them into depot. They go to depot level maintenance about every 4 years, and they take that airplane apart. And it's rebuilt. It's got a lot of structure. I did flight tests on when I was flying in Texas. I did flight tests on the first digital computers and avionics systems that they put in a large airplane. And so it's, you know, all the innards are constantly updated, and now they're about to re-engine them with Rolls-Royce engines.
Yeah, yeah. And
truly amazing.
Well, because you would have had steam gauges when you first started flying.
Well, there were propellers on the airplanes I first trained. Yes.
It's just an amazing aircraft. I've got a story that I want to relate to you, which we had an air show back in the 80s at an airport called Mangalore, which is an emergency airport for all the big airliners coming into Melbourne. It's about, I want to say, 100 kilometres, 150 kilometres north of Melbourne. Anyway, there was a big air show back there in the 1980s, and one of the highlights was a B-52 was going to fly over. And it was flying from Guam, which is a fair distance from Guam down to Melbourne and back again. And they said it will be coming over the airfield at exactly 1 o'clock. Well, those guys hit the button right on 1 o'clock and flew over low and slow, and then just turned around and flew all the way back to Guam.
TOT, man, time on target. That's what we live for.
I just couldn't believe that, down to the second, it was 1 o'clock as I came over the top of the airfield. It just blew my mind.
Doesn't surprise me at all. And I've flown out of Anderson Air Force Air Base in Guam many times.
Absolutely amazing. And it's, as we said, it's still continuing to sort of soldier on. And you consider that, large aircraft carriers, which cost billions of dollars, only have a service life of 50 years. And here we are still flying the B-52. Talk about getting your money's worth. Gosh.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
It's just a pity that there aren't some decent plastic kits for the B-52. Some more recent ones. I mean, you can get it in 1/44th scale, but it'd be nice to get a new one in sort of, 72nd scale or something like that.
I agree.
I know there's a couple kicking around, but they're certainly not new kits, are they? So let's then pivot over to your other side, which is doing your digital illustrations. And I'm a huge fan of detail and scale, and I think that any aircraft modeler who's ever picked up plastic must have at least one of the books that you guys put out. And the work that you do is just stunning. Is it a lot of fun doing it as well? Well, it must be, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Just before we connected, I'm working on laying in stenciling on an F-11F Tiger profile, because that's an upcoming book for us. And it's just enjoyable work. You and I spoke, and I told you I haven't built a model in decades.
Right.
I was an avid modeler as a kid, and a teenager in college, and in my early Air Force career, but couldn't keep it up because the workload got too much, and with kids and the like. So when I retired from the Air Force, I had already gotten into computers, and I found that drawing on the computer filled that creative need I had.
Sure.
And so I started just kind of playing around with it. I was the alumni director for the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets, the military school that I graduated from. After I retired from active duty, I went and worked for them as their alumni director. And Bert Kinsey was someone that I met because he was an alumnus of ours.
Oh, really?
And I would support him when he would come in for. He was in the regimental marching band, and when he would come in for their annual reunion, I would support him and give him access to this trumpet that was in our museum for him to play when they marched. And one of my side duties as the alumni director was to publish, and it turned out 3 times a year, the Corps Review, which was an alumni magazine for the Corps of Cadets. And I had already done my art thing, so I started putting an article about an aviator in each issue. And one of the first ones I did was for a guy, Ben Tate, who was a class of 42 grad, who was a TBF Avenger pilot, who was he piloted one of the three Avengers that attacked and sank the Japanese carrier Hio.
Wow.
And so I published the article on him, and I included my little profile, and I get a phone call from Bert Kinsey, who I've now known for 3 years at the time as the band guy that comes in that I need to get the trumpet for. And he said, "Hey, did you draw this profile?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I may have need for some of your art in my books." I said, "Your books?" And it turned out I had a half a dozen of his detailed scale books in my library. I just never connected the dots. So that kind of established our working relationship, and that was 20 years ago. And he had some health issues in the early 2000s, but he bounced back from that. And a little over 10 years ago, right at the beginning of January 2014, is when we relaunched the brand.
Wow, that's amazing. So step us through how you actually sit down and do your drawings. First of all, what type of program do you use?
My art is strictly 100% done in Adobe Illustrator.
Right.
Which began its life as a printing language. To convert vector shapes to something that a printer could understand. So it's not very intuitive, long learning curve, but it really does what I need it to do. And so I'm working on this, doing the illustrations for the Tiger book. So Bert published the F11F Tiger in detailed scale, 40 years ago.
Yep.
And so I have that book, and I have the original drawings that book had. So I start with a line drawing and just trace it, just recreate it line by line, and then I start laying in different layers to do shading and highlighting and stores maybe, and little layers that I can turn on and off. And then each set of markings, each particular airplane I do has its own layer for markings, and there's layers for camouflage, different camouflage schemes and the like. You just turn them on and off. And so it's kind of an art project, kind of a modeling project. And I'm sitting here in front of my 32-inch monitor, and for a guy my age, you need those big screens where I can really zoom in and see what it is I'm doing.
Well, you said something there that really piqued my interest. You said that it's your modelling by sort of doing this, and in recent years we've seen a huge uptake of 3D modelling, and the guys who do all the designing for that, for a lot of people, or a certain group of people, that scratches their modelling itch by just drawing and designing parts like that. And
I totally understand that.
And I think that, it's something that we need to embrace and welcome as part of our modelling community just as much as it is sort of gluing plastic together.
Oh, I agree, Dave.
Now, what I'm interested in is how do you research to get the actual colours for your drawings? I know there's a lot of colour photos around, but there's times when those photos, the colour saturation doesn't necessarily represent 100% what the aircraft looked like with the old Mark I eyeballs. So is there anything that you do or any research that you do to sort of dive in to figure out, well, exactly what colour was this particular aircraft?
Well, there are military painting manuals. Each service has them, and the Navy, the Navy has theirs, and they update them every couple of years. The Air Force has the TO 1-1-4 that does the same sort of thing. And in there, when you look, for standard, for the standard camouflage schemes, they will include the federal standard numbers for the stenciling and some of the emergency markings, they will include the federal standard color numbers for those too. When it gets down to a squadron tail marking or something like that, lots of times it's, you're getting as close as you can based on a color photo.
Yeah. Yeah. But even then, there's some, I would imagine, sort of, particularly if we go back to the 1930s, there's not many, if any at all, colour photos around from the early aircraft or squadrons that were flying. So how do you then sort of approach that side of it when you're trying to get the colour swashes right for their squadron markings?
Well, it's not a perfect science. And when you're in the digital and print world, what looks right on my screen may not come out exactly the same.
Yeah.
When the ink is laid to the paper.
Yeah.
Or on someone's tablet if they've got a different RGB settings set for their device. So it's not a perfect science, but all of us guys who do this have extensive libraries, and the Monogram books, 3 huge Navy markings from the first days of aviation up to modern times, including the ANA paint chips at the back. There are some very, very good references out there, and we try to hit them all and see what's what. But again, sometimes it just takes your best guess interpretation.
Sure. And well, for me, I tend to, if I can't get the actual sort of correct paint, I'll go as close as I can. I don't sweat the small stuff. I'm more interested in sort of finished product.
I think most modelers are like that.
Yeah. And there's also the tonal variations. I mean, even if you paint an aircraft, let's look at the Southeast Asian camouflage scheme used during the Vietnam War, for example. That fades over time and has different colour saturations as the sun sort of beats down on it. It's not an exact sort of science at any sort of, you can help make it an exact science as much as you can, but at some point you've got to allow for environmental factors such as bleaching of the paint, etc., etc.
Exactly. And every plane's different. And you look at Navy planes, and there's all kinds of corrosion touch-ups that go on.
Yeah.
You do the best you can.
You certainly do. What's your most favourite aircraft if I'm going to push you and you can't say B-52?
All right. Well, even though I'm an Air Force guy, there's a lot of really neat Navy stuff out there.
Yes.
And we've covered the F-14 with 1 detail and scale book and 3 colors and markings books. And that's just such an iconic airplane. So I'd say if I had to pick my favorite, I'm not sure I could pick between the F-14 and the F-4. That the Phantom was just a beast.
Well, that's got a little bit of particular appeal to me, only because the Australian Air Force operated them for 2-3 years while we're waiting for our F-111s to arrive. And it's just such a beautiful aircraft. It's got just lovely lines.
It really would.
Yep.
Yeah, and a powerful darn airplane.
Yeah. There's actually a guy now, I was just seeing on YouTube the other day, a guy's restoring one, and he's got it up for sale. I think it's 90% complete, and it's up for private sale. And
wow.
I think he's asking, I want to say, about $6 million for it.
Man, oh man.
I don't know how you price something like that.
Well,
yeah, really? I mean, how?
Well, not just that.
It's not like you can go on, look up a table and go, here we go. Yeah, this year, this much, and in this condition, it goes for this much.
Well, the funny thing is the operating cost per hour. I mean, I think on the same video they were saying that a A4 Skyhawk is about $4,000 an hour operating cost. That's including, the fuel and all that sort of stuff. but I'd hate to think how much a Phantom costs per hour to fly. But then again, if you can slap down $6 million to buy a jet, you're not going to be worried about the hourly operating costs, are you?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's a thing.
It's all in the noise.
It is. It is. Tell me a bit more about detail and scale. Let's dive into that a bit deeper and how it's all going at the moment. And it's not just you and Bert Kinsey either. There's a few other guys who work in the background there, isn't there?
Yes. Vince Mankowski is one of our guys. He's up at the Naval Air Station up in Maryland at Pax River. And we're going to see him tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going over to Bert's house. Bert lives about 3 miles away from me. So I'm going over to Bert's house. I got to be there at 07:30 in the morning. And we're driving up to Salem, which is about a 45-minute drive, Salem, Virginia. And we're going to sell books at the Virginia Shootout.
Oh, okay.
Which it's an IPMS show in Region 2. And Vince is going to be there, so we'll see Vince. Klaus Hagen has co-authored 4 of our books for us so far, and he's just gotten back from Peru, a business trip to Peru, so he won't be with us tomorrow. But he's on our team, and a guy named Mike Heidemann, who I don't know if you came by our table in Madison. Mike was there most days. He and I have co-authored the 2 books we did, The Colors and Markings of the A6 Intruder.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't see Mike, unfortunately.
Yeah, Mike's an amazing guy. He was a corporate pilot. He's got 18,000 flight hours.
Wow.
18,000. So having him on our team and proofing books about airplanes and flight characteristics just invaluable.
Well, just talking to that, there's the old saying, there's old pilots and there's bold pilots, but there's no old bold pilots. So I think I want him flying next time I'm doing a small trip somewhere in the US.
There you go. There you go. Well, let me tell you about how the book workflow works. Bert's the primary author, and he's either primary author or co-author on all the Detail and Scale series books. The F-80 book that we just published a week or so ago, that's number 20 in the new Detail and Scale series. So Bert does all the writing, and he does the initial work on photographs. He has an extensive collection. We've made research trips, a couple of trips to the National Naval Aviation Museum of Pensacola.
Which I'm still yet to get to. That's the only major museum I haven't hit yet in the US.
It's an amazing museum. Now, I know you got to see the Air Force Museum.
Yes.
And the difference between the two, the Air Force Museum is bigger with those big 4 hangar buildings, but you can't get as close to the airplanes there because they have them all, cordoned off. But Pensacola, it's like a petting zoo. I mean, you can walk up, you walk up, touch the airplanes. We were there one day. They had their. We did a book on the Cougar, and they have a F9F Cougar on display at Pensacola, and we went to one of the museum people and said, "Hey, can we open the nose of that so we can get some pictures?" And they said, "How do you open the nose?" And we said, Bert says, "Well, we'll show you." And so it kind of slides forward on some rails, and they allow you to do that. So it's a really accessible museum. But your time at the Air Force Museum, I know that the Kentucky guy Kentucky Dave said that you couldn't do justice in the 4 or 5 hours you guys were there, and you can't. It's just an amazing place, and I was up there. I went up to the Dayton IPMS show this spring, and then afterwards spent 2 days in their archives. This is my 3rd research trip up there. I'm working on an F-106 book. That's next for me, And so having access to their archives is really, really what makes all this work.
And just to continue derailing you for a second, I'm a big believer that history shouldn't be observed behind a felt rope. You need to sort of get up and get close and be able to sniff and smell. And I understand that, they're trying to protect the aircraft from people touching them. I get that, but there's just something about reaching out and touching, a tank or aircraft that just I guess it's part of the human condition. You sort of want to reach out and touch it and use one of your senses. Now, there's another museum. It's in Hawaii where you can the aircraft they got at the back at is that Hickam? I want to say it's the museum.
The Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum.
Yeah. So they got that big hangar at the back, and those aircraft you can go up and touch and caress and kiss if you want to. Well, in fact, they've got an F-111 there from the Royal Australian Air Force sitting out there on the tarmac. So there you go.
Yeah, I've been to all 50 U.S. states, most of those courtesy of the United States Air Force. But I still consider Hawaii on my bucket list because my only time there it was on a 4-hour refueling stop going from Guam to California. So I still would love to get back there and see Pearl Harbor for myself. And that museum, we just sent them an order of our Pearl Harbor book because they've been selling that successfully there starting this year, which we were real happy to bring them on board.
Oh, mate, whichever way you can, you got to get out. Definitely get out to Hawaii and check it out. It's it's I've been there about 6 times now. One of my favourite places in the US. I love it.
Oh.
And of course, it's a lot closer to Australia than the rest of the US, so it makes it easier.
I get that.
So sorry, I derailed you. You're telling us about.
No, that's all right.
You're telling us about how it works.
So Bert does the writing, and he goes through all his photographs. He's a really detail-oriented guy, and so he's structured, and he will send me a chapter at a time. And it'll be a document, a Word document with the text of the chapter, and it'll be another Word document of the captions for the photographs, and then it'll be a folder of photos. And I'll go through and I'll clean the photos up again. Something we really pride ourselves on, or have really good quality photographs. And so. I'll proof what he's given me, and then I sit in front of my computer with Adobe InDesign, and I start laying it out. And as we go, we have each of our series of books, the Detail and Scale series, the Colors of Marking series, and what we call our special editions, or they're kind of survey books. Our Navy Marine jet fighters, part 1 and 2, Navy Marine attack aircraft, and the World War II carrier-based aircraft. They all have a page number footprint. That's a function of printing costs. So I lay it out, and I send it to Bert. I'll connect him to my machine so he can see things, and we'll reorient some pages and move some photographs around. It's really a total cooperative effort. And then when it's done, then he turns it over to me. And I do all the publishing with Amazon. They do our print. It's print on demand, but they're the best print on demand for a reasonable price that we found.
Yeah.
I do Kindle version, and then I do a digital version, which is different because the photographs are a different DPI for digital than print. And the page size is different. So I use the print PDF or InDesign file as our master. And then I use that to create a resized digital version. And that becomes a digital master, and then I export it as a KPF file and publish it to Amazon as a Kindle book. And then I export from that same file as an EPUB, and I publish it to Apple.
Huh. It sounds,
And when we
very
started,
complicated to me.
well, yeah, but we started, as I said before, just over 10 years ago. So 10 and a half years ago, the very beginning of 2014. And in that time, we now have 33 active books on the shelf. And the good thing about modern publishing is, we'll hear people at shows, we'll see people saying, "Oh, I had the original, but I didn't get the original, and it's been out of print." Well, barring some cataclysm, these are not going to go out of print.
Yeah.
Because you're not buying them from us, you're buying them from Amazon, and they ship direct to the customer.
And the ability to have a choice of digital or print editions. Digital you can sort of not only take with you, but I'm old school. I prefer to have the print version in my hand. But what's good about the digital, I can blow up the picture and sort of get right into into nitty gritty and count the screw marks or the scratch marks depending on where you were sitting on the aircraft.
Well, when we started back in 2014, we relaunched the brand digital only. I thought that was going to be the future of publications, and we did that for 3 years. We were digital only for between 2 and 3 years, and we'd start to go to shows and we'd start to meet customers, and very often we would hear, "Oh, I would love to have a print book. I'd like to have it in my hand." And I'd hand them my iPad and I say, "Here, you can have this in your hand."
Yeah.
And they said, no, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And so we understand that. So starting in 2017, there was a little hiatus in 2017 where we weren't publishing new stuff because we went back and I turned the digital books in full cooperation with Bert and layout and all that stuff. We turned them into print versions. And then when we did that, starting in 2017, every book we published since is always available in 3 versions: the print, the Apple book, and the Kindle book. And they look better digitally, if you ask me, just because it doesn't matter who you go to get stuff printed. When the ink hits the paper, it's not the same as seeing the digital view on a device or computer screen right in front of you. You just can't get that same quality in print.
Yeah.
And it's convenient to always have it with me. When I go to the show tomorrow, we're going to have copies of all of our books there, but I'll often, and I did it a few times at Madison. I'm working on this F-106 book, and when we would have a little thing, little plaque that we had that said what's coming, and there would be the cover of the F-106 book, and if someone was interested, I'd pull up my iPad and I'd walk them through the first 40 pages that I'd already done so they could see what's coming. It's handy.
And it's great from the point of view of somebody. You can then show somebody, hey, here it is, and being able to see it, you can make a decision there on the spot whether you want to buy it or not. That's great.
Exactly.
And you don't have to carry a huge stock around with you to different shows and stuff.
That's right. My iPad still weighs the same and it's still the same size, but it's got all 33 books in it. And one more thing about the photos. I consumed a lot of ebooks out there as we were starting this process. And photos don't, because, there's cost, there's sizing costs and download costs that Amazon assesses. There's a lot of books that don't have good quality photos.
Yeah.
And we really strive that all the photos in all of our books are in high resolution. And that costs us less profit, but that's what our customers want. And that's what we try to deliver.
Well, speaking of photos, I mean, obviously there's the publicity shots that the US Air Force takes, or the Navy or the Marine Corps take. Do you source photos from private collections at all?
We do, with the permission of the copyright holder. and we have a couple of archives that we've come into possession of that include photographs, and it's been a great way for me to get to know people. When I did the Marine A6 book, I went through this one archive, and I kept seeing this. Photo files will often have a photographer's name, and I kept seeing this particular name, and Bert had never heard of the guy, but he had some really good pictures. And so, man, I did a Google search on him and did a deep dive and came up with 4 potential phone numbers. And I called and left cold call voicemails on these 4 phone numbers. And by God, the next day, this 86-year-old gentleman from San Antonio calls me, and he said, "I'm who you're looking for." And he's 86 years old. He used to have access, full access to the transient ramp at one of the Air Force bases in Texas, and he took photos. And he has this slide collection of thousands of slides, and he hadn't looked at them in 10 years before I called him.
Wow.
His kids are grown and they have no interest in it. So he's been sharing some stuff with me with his permission, when I took that research trip to Wright-Patterson and into the Air Force Museum archives in the spring. I brought them a thumb drive with 120 photographs of Air Force aircraft that he took in the late 70s, early 80s, as a donation from me in his name. Because you want to preserve that.
Yeah.
You don't want to see those kind of things lost to our community. So we have access to a lot of photographs. We do not publish any photograph that we do not have permission to use, and it's a legal thing. We don't care to walk on the wild side or see what we can get away with. That's not what we're about. We're about doing it the right way. And because Bert has been in this industry since the late 70s, he has amassed a huge amount of research material, including photographs, printed photographs, negatives, 35 millimeter slides. You walk into his storage area in the basement of his house, and it's like walking into Disneyland for somebody like you and me. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, just touching on the photos, I mean, because there's, a generation that was sort of passing now where the only sort of pictures they took went onto slides and that, and, they're no doubt they're in basements everywhere and attics, and I worry that stock of print is going to be lost to us because people don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. Oh, I'm very concerned about that. So I'm always looking for opportunities to see those things preserved. And this gentleman in Texas that I've talked about, I've really been encouraging him to send his Navy stuff to Pensacola. And you don't want to, there's too much chance to lose that stuff. And we as a community don't want to see that evaporate.
No, agree with you 100%. 100%. So you're heading off to a show. You and the rest of the crew are pretty regulars at all the sort of major model shows throughout the US. We do have some shows down here in Australia. I'd love to see you guys get out here too, if you ever think about it.
Well, I don't know what my mileage claim's going to be for that trip. But wasn't Madison a great show?
Oh my God, it'd have to be. And I'd been to
Omaha.
We went to Omaha. That's right, a couple of years ago, and we thought that was great. And of course,
I've been to the last 2 Omaha shows, and I was stationed in Omaha for 5 years at SAC headquarters.
So our little Antipodean minds were blown by Omaha, and then of course I roll up to Madison, and that's just next level. The guys,
it was amazing, and I was really the venue was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah.
You know, the 3 levels was great. And I listened to your podcasts of your description of it, and you were right on. I mean, the model, the display areas were great. The judging rooms were huge. The vendor area was amazing, I thought.
Yeah.
But the city,
Oh no, the city was beautiful.
walking to the pubs and to the bars and the restaurants, all within like a 2-minute walk. Holy mackerel.
Yep. And I think I had only one. I got panhandled once, and it was the most polite panhandle that I've ever come across in the US. So, and they were very well dressed to boot. So I was doubly happy to sort of fork out some chump change and give it to them. But yeah,
nice.
Jeff Hearn and his crew, and he built a great crew sort of behind him. They just did the most fantastic job, and certainly the bar's been set high for any sort of shows that are coming down the pike in the future, regardless of where it's held moving forward. But yeah, I can't congratulate them enough on the effort they put in, and it was just a really, really good experience.
And I think you nailed it, Dave. They have reset the bar.
Yeah,
it was we showed up on Tuesday, and you know it took us 2 days to drive there. With first night, the hotel we were at, it was right after dinner. The sirens went off because we were under tornado warning. It was a big storm. We got up there Tuesday in the back of the car. We've got this hand truck because we got boxes of books. We pull into the vendor parking lot, and there's like 8 guys waiting with a cart, and they unloaded our car in under a minute. And we were I've never been so well supported at a show.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting to hear it from the vendor's point of view. That's really, really good.
It was really neat. And I've told everybody there that I interacted with, I've never seen better handling of the vendors. It was really great. Really great.
Well, as I said, you need to come out to Australia and put have a look at one of our shows out here. And you know what? The beauty about that is you can actually stop at Hawaii on the way out to break up the trip.
There you go. There you go. I get 2 birds with 1 stone.
Exactly.
Trying to rope him into the exact opposite of our trip to there. You know.
Hey, before we go, how about I tell you what's coming next?
I'd be really excited to hear what's coming next, and I'm sure the listeners would too.
Well, I've mentioned a couple times the F11F Tiger. That's a book that Bert published, decades ago. And when we bring a book forward like that, they are revised, extensively revised, and significantly enlarged, and much more color. A couple years ago, when I brought the SBD Dauntless book forward, it was kind of one of my early projects and all the detail photos were taken in color. But when that book had originally been published, you could only have 8 pages of color in the book.
Oh no!
So because color was so expensive in those print days, so there's much more color. Everything that we've got that we have a color image of it is in the book in color. So we're extensively redoing that original F11 Tiger book, and I'm doing there's probably 6 or 8 profiles I've been working on for Bert this week. There's a company in England who is aligned with some folks in Ukraine, I believe, and they are looking at a Tiger kit release in 1/48 scale sometime in the relatively near future.
Yep.
So Bert has been giving them drawings and detail information for over a year now. So we're in the process of putting that book together, but then we'll probably just kind of wait for that kit to come out. Bert's focus has always been on the Detail and Scale series books. I'm a fan of the Colors and Marking series books.
I am too.
I love
yeah.
looking at beautiful airplanes.
Yeah.
So I did that F-102 book on my own a few years ago.
Well, I've
and
got
it was
that
really,
sitting right in my hand at the moment, to tell you the truth.
Oh, well, that's wonderful to hear, David. It really is. And so I'm now into my next project is the F-106. And it's going to be in the same format, every squadron covered. And I've been in extensive reach out mode to various copyright holders and various other authors who have published F-106 books in enlisting their aid and putting this together. And what I'm going to try to do is what I did with what Mike Heidemann and I did with both of our A6 books, is do it one unit at a time and show the evolution of those markings within that unit. And it's kind of like detective work, which is kind of fun for me. So that's my next project.
Well, I'm very excited to hear that, because I'm a big fan of the F-102 and the F-106. I love Delta wings.
Remarkable airplanes both.
And the 102, did that do a short stint in Vietnam?
Say again?
The F-102, did that do a short stint in Vietnam?
Oh yeah. And in the Colors and Markings book, we covered the PACAF units that flew in Vietnam, and so we're all in the SC Southeast Asia Camouflage Scheme, and it was a remarkable learning experience for me. When the United States was embroiled in Vietnam, I was in high school and then college, and when Operation Linebacker 2 happened, when we took the bombing to Hanoi and Haiphong in December of '73, I was at Castle Air Force Base in my initial B-52 Combat Crew Training School.
Right.
So I didn't, I would see F-102s and F-106s, but when I went to Southeast Asia, it was after the hostilities had ended, and I flew training sorties out of Guam and Utapao Royal Thai Air Base. And so they were contemporary aircraft of mine, but I didn't know, just how they got the F-102s, how they did the temporary in-flight refueling system to get them over into the theater from Canas and into the bases that they went to in the Western Westpac. It was just a remarkable history lesson for me.
Yeah, that's interesting engineering stuff that they did to sort of get what they needed.
Oh yeah, amazing.
It was really cool.
At Madison, we also had coming soon. I mentioned that Hagen Klaus had done 4 books for us, including he co-authored and updated Bert's 2 books on the P-38 that we published earlier this year. And now that Hagen's back from his archaeology trip to Peru, we think early next year, with his help, we'll come out with expansion and updated versions of the 2 P-51 Mustang books.
Oh, very cool.
In detail and scale.
Very, very
and
cool.
There's other things that Bert and I continue to have on our to-do list, but we can only publish 4 or 5 a year, and so
you got to expand your team so you can pump out more books.
Yeah. Well, it's been enjoyable work. We really have a great team of guys who all work together and respect each other, and it's just a real partnership effort. I'm consider myself very lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. So, Rock, whereabouts can people find Detail and Scale?
We've got our website, www.detailandscale.com. And there at that site, there's photo sets that Bert has published, and you can get links. There, we have a publication page where you can see all 33 of our current books, And if you click on a book cover, it'll take you to the books page, and it'll show you 10 or 12 sample pages of the book, and we'll have ordering links that will take you right to Apple or to Amazon for either digital or print. And if you're going to do digital, there's also links that will take you to where you go to get the Apple Book app or the Amazon Kindle Reader app. And so that's where we are. We're also on Facebook.
Yep.
And we've got Detail and Scale. If you search them on Facebook, you'll find us. And within that, we also have a group, Scale Aircraft Modeling with Detail and Scale.
Well, there you go. Well, that sounds like a fantastic point to sort of pull this up, Rock, and I'd like to thank you very, very much for coming on the show. As I said, it was great meeting you in Madison, and I certainly hope that we do cross paths again in the very near future.
Well, will you come next year to Nats?
Doing it once every year is a bit tough. I've got a long way to travel, I've got to make sure I keep the missus happy as well. So
yeah, I get that. But it's in Hampton, so it's only a 4 or 5 hour drive for us. So we were looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know, and it's in the part of the world where I haven't really been in. I've travelled to most parts of the US, but I haven't been to that particular part, and so yeah, it's tempting. I might see what I can do.
Still a long way off,
Yeah,
Lots of other things on the calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of things can change.
Exactly right. Well, I wanted to thank you all both for the invitation to come and chat.
No, it's been our pleasure having you on.
It's a wonderful hobby we have, and it's great to meet people from all over, and you are the Podfather. And I'm an old guy, so I work hard to exercise, and I walk on a regular basis, and I bike, and I listen to you, and I listen to the Kentucky Mike and Dave, and we sponsor the Model Geeks, and they're great guys.
They are, yeah.
And we hope we're going to see some of them tomorrow also. And you guys you hear it all the time, and I always hear all the podcasts, we didn't really expect that. I know you didn't, but you've done so much for the hobby. So much to bring, the single guy by himself in the basement out into this larger community. So thank you and all the folks like you for doing that.
Well, thank you very much, Rock. They're kind words.
Yes.
Very kind words. Mate, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and I highly recommend anybody who is looking for some detailed drawings and information on the aircraft, go check out Detail and Scale. And also don't forget to drop by their Facebook page as well, and perhaps join those group chats. You get a lot out of it. Thanks, Rock, and we will see you when we see you.
It's a pleasure, gents. Really appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, that was certainly a great interview with Rock, and as I said, when I met him in Madison, we had a great conversation there, but way too short. And I'd love to catch up again with him in person and have a more detailed conversation above and beyond what we've already spoken about just then. Right.
Yeah, he's very larger than life sort of character.
Oh, he is, yeah. He's such a super nice guy. All right, on our last episode, we mentioned that we had some giveaways for our Patreon supporters, and what I've decided to do is bring a new segment to the show, and this is going to be called The Wheel of Fortune. Gee, I hope that's not copywriting anything by me saying that. But
well, maybe, but why don't we change the name then to like
The Wheel of OTB.
The Wheel of Misfortune.
Could do that. So this is for all of our Patreon supporters. And as mentioned in the last show, we're actually giving away a 124th, from One Man Army. We're giving away a marking and stencil marks set for the Spitfire Mark 9C. in 1/24 scale, and also the markings and stencil set, again by One Man Army, for the Grumman F4F4 Wildcat 1/32 scale kit, which is made by Trumpeter. So I have all the names loaded up, and how about we just spin this wheel and see who the winner is. And it looks like it is Chuck Doherty has won this prize. There you go, Chuck. I'll be reaching out to you and making sure that we can get these mailed out to you. And in other news, for our next wheel of OTB, we could have come up with a better name for it.
Yeah, just...
or the OTB wheel.
Well, I mean, like, why don't we decide it after the next episode? That way the listeners can have some input.
In our next episode.
Crowdsource our creativity, you know.
That's a good idea.
But we reserve the right to pick the best one, because maybe you come up with bad names. Just like Dave.
So next episode, our giveaway is going to be from our good friends at Detail and Scale Aviation Publications. Your choice of either a print version or a electronic version of any one of their wonderful books that they have available. So we'll be spinning that next episode, and that's open to all of our Patreon supporters. And of course, you can help support the show. Go to www.patreon.com/onthebench and pledge any amount from as little as $1 per month upwards. All your contributions are greatly appreciated. And I think, Julian, that brings us to the end of the show.
That's the end.
Yeah. Geez, just for the two of us, we managed to sort of have quite a long discussion.
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm flapping my gums.
Well,
I was flapping my gums talking about my stupid car. So there is that.
You always flap your gums when you talk about your cars.
That's true. That's true.
All right, folks. We'll be back in a fortnight. Parting words, Julian.
Yeah. Go enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Right, no worries. Oh! In late news, I don't know whether you've seen the Facebook page, but it has finally arrived. My electric fence for my possums. So the possum war continues.
Oh, yes.
I've taken down all the spikes, and tomorrow I'll be fitting the electronic fence just in time for the trees to start blooming in spring.
I'll laugh if they bloom early and you have to quickly go out there and put it up.
Well, it's only tomorrow, so I don't think the trees are going to start sprouting between now and tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, oh gosh. I'm going to beat these possums.
I want to see the possum on the inside of the fence just as you're putting it up.
I want to watch it get zapped. That's what I want to watch.
You want to see it get zapped and fall off the fence?
It's just to rest everybody assured, these are government-approved fences, and they give like a static sort of electricity sort of zap.
Yeah. So. It's just a surprise.
Yes. But I want to see that look of surprise on his face as his little nose nudges against the wire.
Yeah.
It'd give me great
It'd be
satisfaction.
far less strong than the kind of cattle fencing, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's illegal to use the cattle fencing in a domestic situation in Australia. So
okay.
I've looked right into this.
Yeah. You want to do it by the book, yeah? I get it.
Yeah, got $500 worth of zapping equipment.
$500?
Yeah, I know. It was expensive, man.
Oh, you really love those trees, don't you?
Well, yes, I don't want my trees ruined. All right, guys. We will see you in a fortnight. Catch you later.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening, everybody. And don't forget that Ian and I will be at the Queensland Model and Hobbies Expo, 17th, 18th of August, which is next weekend. Ipswich Events Centre, Ipswich Showgrounds, 81 Warwick Road, Ipswich, Queensland. Looking forward to catching up with all our listeners from that part of the world. Should be a great weekend. So be there or be square. And there are a whole host of other wonderful modelling podcasts for you to listen to. To find out where they all are, simply go to modelpodcasts.com. That's one word, modelpodcasts.com. It's a listing of all podcasts around the world that our good friend Stuart in Canada has put together. Just go there and click the links and it'll take you straight to the particular podcast. And don't forget, when you're listening to us, just click on their rating and give us a 5-star rating. It just helps with the analytics and makes it easier for other people to find us.